We have Chumash because this is the shul. Okay. Morning, everybody. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Bamidbar. Bamidbar means in the desert. It is the beginning of Chumash Bamidbar, the book of Bamidbar, which is the beginning of the fourth of the five Chumashim. Okay, it's the beginning of the fourth of the five Chumashim. And when that happens, when we start a new Chumash, the chapters go back to the first, back to the chapter one. Okay, so it's if you have your Parsha fact, I'm sorry. Well, you can have a book with a lot of chapters, right? Thank you. You can have a book with a lot of chapters, right? Yeah. But since it's five different books, so the chapters start over again. Book one, book two, book three, book four, book five. Book one has chapter one, book two has chapter one, book three has chapter one, book four is chapter one, and book five is chapter one. You look confused. I don't know why. Yeah. Why are you saying that? That's important. So that if you know it's chapter 25, and you're looking in the book of Bereshis in Genesis, you're not going to find what we're learning because it's not a Chumash Bereshis, it's a Chumash Bamidbar. But I thought Bamidbar is the book of numbers. That's a separate issue. I'm just first talking about a technical thing. The chapters, by the way, are not Jewish chapters. The Christians gave us that, but it's just it's easy reference, so we use them. So again, we're starting Chumash Bamidbar, which is known as the Book of Numbers. And the reason why it's called the Book of Numbers is because there's going to be census taking in the portion. But it's a new book, so the chapters revert back to chapter one. You look very confused. I'm not sure why. Did you ever read a series of books? Book one, book what? Chapter 1 through whatever, right? Shemos has chapter 1 through whatever. Vayikra has chapter 1 through whatever. So if you're looking for a chapter, you have to first find out which book it's in. You see this? It's in here. Okay. There are 159 verses in the Parsha, no commandments. And the name of the Chumash, the name of the Parsha of the first Parsha in the Chumash takes the name of the Chumash, meaning to say the first portion in Bereshis, in the book of Bereshis, is Parashat Bereshis. The first portion in Shemos is Parashat Shemos. The first portion in Vayikra is Parashat Vayikra, the portion of Vayikra. Avraham, talk to me. If you're not following, say something. Huh? I'm following. You're following? Okay. So today we're beginning Chumash Bamidbar, the book of Bamidbar, and the portion's name is Bamidbar. You know what? Take a look in the Parsha facts on the back of the second page. For those of you who are far away, can't see, I'll put it up here. And you can call the office to get a copy if you'd like. So on the upper right side is Sefer Bereshis, the book of Bereshis, and there it has the names of the portions in Genesis and Bereshis, Noach, Lach Lecha, Vayerech, Hayasara, Kalvas, Vayetze, Vayishlach, Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, and Vayechi. Then underneath that is Sefer Shemos, the book of Exodus. And there again, the first portion there is, in the book of Shemos is Parashat Shemos, the portion of Shemos. Shemos ve'ereboy b'shat yisrael mishpatim, Truma tetzav v'kisisa v'yakov v'kudei. Then in the middle upper side is Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. And the first portion is, I don't hear you. And the first portion is Vayikra, thank you. But this past week we did Bahar B'chul Kosai, and this coming week is Bamidbar, and we start the Chumash Bamidbar by reading the portion of Bamidbar. what portion will be next Shabbos? Great question. It won't be Naso next Shabbos because the following Shabbos is the holiday of Shavuos. And when we have a holiday, then the reading for the holiday supersedes what the regular Torah reading is, and Naso gets pushed off to the week after. Everybody with me? So next week at the 11:30 slot, instead of doing Parshas Naso, we're going to be talking about the holiday of Shavuos, and you're invited to attend that class as well. Everybody with me? And then the following Sunday, the day after Shavuos, then we'll do about Naso. Which one? We read different sections of the Torah related to Shavuos. There will be Yisro, which has part of Yisro that has about the giving of the Torah. Next Sunday, we'll find out which the Torah readings are. We'll go into more detail about that. Okay, everyone with me? Now, once we're on the subject, take a look at the next page, which is Aliyot on Shabbos. Everyone see this one? Again, if you're not present, you can call the office, and they're happy to send it to you. Trevor will do that. So Aliyah is the plural of Aliyah. Aliyah means to go up with the Torah. So the first Aliyah is Rishon. If there is a Kohen present, that means the descendant of Aaron, he'll be called up first. If there's not, someone else can be called up instead. Second will be Sheni. That means the second Aliyah. And there's the days of the week. Today's Yom Rishon, tomorrow will be Yom Sheni. So this is Sheni is the second Aliyah. If there was a Kohen, then the Levi would get the second Aliyah. Third Shlishi is the Israelite. Revi'i, fourth Aliyah, also Israelite. Fifth Aliyah, Chamishi, Israelite. Sixth Aliyah, Shishi. Seventh Aliyah, Israelite. The Maftir, the concluding paragraph, is anyone could be called for that, Kohen Levi Yisrael. And then they lift the Torah, Hag ben Galila. They lift and bind the Torah. And then the Haftorah is a reading from the book of prophets related to the portion of the week. Or if it's for a holiday, related to the holiday. So,
Rabbi, how many aliyahs are there for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur?
Those are different. There's less. Shabbos has the most. Right. Okay.
I have a question. So in Shabbat, you have 8 shades for Shachari, but more.
There's really 7 plus 1 because the one is usually a repeat of what partial repeat of what we did, just so that's for the
for Mincha, we only do 3.
That's correct. That's like during the week also. We only do 3.
And then how come they do the Torah? We take out the Torah.
We do, yes.
Torah first,
we do. And then what?
And then we do Amidah. But in
So
what I saw yesterday.
Oh, by Mincha we take out the Torah and then we do the Amidah, correct? Because it's part of the Amidah service. It's part of the afternoon service. By the Torah reading on Shachrit, first of all, we can't talk out during the morning service. By Mincha you can talk out, but we can't talk out. And second of all, it's sort of a bridge between the afternoon and the Musaf, the supplemental service. So that's why it's after the morning reading, after the Shemona Esrei, after the Santa Devotion. So we do the Santa Devotion on Shabbat, then we take out the Torah, we read the Torah, then the rabbi usually gives a speech. The rabbi spoke yesterday, said something very funny. He says a guy who was in synagogue for the first time, and he's asking about all the different things that are being done. Why do we open the ark? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? I won't belabor the point, but he was very dramatic in saying it. Then he says, "Oh, what happens now? What happens now? We put the Torah back into the ark and we sing and put it out, yeah." And then the rabbi, what's the rabbi doing? He's getting up to speak. And then what happens next? And then he sees the rabbi taking off his watch and putting it on the stand. And what does that mean? It means absolutely nothing. He's not contained by the amount of time he speaks. So it was cute. So this is just a quick overview of what it's like on Shabbos. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay.
I do have one question.
Yes.
When we're doing the Parsha studies, we don't take a lesson with the Torah because we're not actually taking the Torah out, but this is.
Right.
Or we can say.
No, you're asking two different questions, really. I'm making these two different questions. There is a blessing on the Torah that we're supposed to make in the morning for any Torah we learn. It's part of the morning blessings. But that's just for the entire day. But when a person is called up to the Torah, that's when they make their own separate blessing. That's every day when you wake up in the morning, you say that. It's not right before Torah reading.
They said it's forbidden to study or recite Torah passages before reciting the Bible.
Right.
So we say it before studying the Parsha or not?
Right. We say it in the morning services. Okay. All right. So again, as I mentioned, Bamidbar is called the Book of Numbers because there is census in it, but the word Bamidbar means literally in the desert. And what's going to happen is the Torah in Chumash Bamidbar is going to talk about what transpired with the Jewish people when they left Egypt to be in the desert, and they received the Torah and they built the Mishkan, as we learned in Chumash Shemos, the book of Exodus, and what happened during this time. So the first question we ask is, why was the Torah given in a midbar? Why was it given in the desert? Would it be nice, a beautiful meadow, or with trees and flowers, or in the land of Israel? Why in the desert? That's pretty desolate. And
they said in Israel that they know where the Torah was given.
Which Mount Sinai is? We have an idea of what might be Mitzvah, but again, nothing special about it. And the answer is, number one, it's access to all. It doesn't have to be in a special place. Doesn't need perfect time or location. People were studying Torah even during Corona. My yeshiva here down the block gave out tablets that you could not access the internet with, so that the rabbis and teachers could teach their kids on Corona at home. The state stupidly didn't allow the kids to come into school initially, but whatever it is, it was so important that the kids continue to learn that's what we did. So it doesn't need a nice place, a holy place. It doesn't even need the land of Israel, because as the verse says, Torah tzivah Moshe Marasha Kelas Yaakov, the Torah is a legacy for the Jewish people, and we need to study it no matter when, what, and where. And it's our lifeline. And there's an interesting Jewish law question that was asked during the Holocaust. There were some people that were arrested, not by the Nazis yet, and they were in jail, and they were Torah students, and they wanted to study. So this particular police station was a little loose. They let you bring in extra food. So the question was, could volumes of the Talmud be ripped, the pages ripped out, and wrap the food in the pages of the Talmud? The negative is it's not respectful to the Talmud to be used to wrap the meat and to be ripped out of the book. But on the other hand, it gave them opportunity to study. So what was the ruling? Yes, they were allowed to rip it out to pass it on to them. In Shem, I recommend you use the English more than the Hebrew, and you slowly wean yourself off that. Okay, that's my recommendation. But that's a beautiful, beautiful question, you know. So why is it in the desert? The Torah is in the desert also to teach us humility, also to teach us, if we want to be successful in Torah, we have to reduce our dependency on things and money. Go ahead before you sleep, you can get a handout. You know, if we're focusing on things and money and wealth, then that's going to take away, detract from our ability to absorb the Torah. And another idea is we need to clean out ourselves because we have a lot of preconceived notions and habits and ideas that we have, and sometimes we can't absorb the Torah ideas because of that. And the example I use is imagine someone buys you a nice bottle of wine and you pour it into your cup and say, oh, this is terrible. And so you buy a different bottle and a different flavor, and he says, oh, this is even worse. This is what's going on. These are expensive bottles of wine. Went to the winery to get them. And then he looks into the cup and he sees that it has coffee from 2 days ago still in it. Well, of course, the wine's not going to taste good. So you have to be willing to, like a desert, blank, clear out some of the preconceived notions, habits, and ideas so that you can come with a freshness so that the Torah can impact us. So Torah study is a very big mitzvah. It's food for our soul. And God's light is embedded in the Torah. And it's an eternal connection for us, and it transforms a person. And most importantly, also, I will add, it gives us moral clarity.
When we learn Torah, we talk to God.
We're not talking to God, but we're connecting to God through the Torah. Because it's his words and has God's light in it. Yes.
Does it ever say why in 40 days we seek the Torah after the teacher? Why not 2 years, 3 years? I mean,
You want to take things slow. You don't want to rush it.
Yeah, because there is that those
40 days.
that happen.
40 days. We count from Passover to Shavuos, 40 days, 49 days. Yes.
So why I mean we have the golden calf, which is not, let's say the worship has not gone up, and
we weren't ready. We have to work on it. That was the idea of the 49 days, which we still have today, is to slowly work towards being able to have. We just came out of Egypt. We were idol worshippers, and we have to be open enough to be able to accept it. No, but that was the period that God said you can work on it so that you become ready to be able to do it. That's what we're doing now. We're counting the Omer every night to get closer to trying to be ready to accept the Torah.
So Omer is not a sad time.
It is a sad time. That was later on because the students of Rabbi Akiva died during that period of time. That's a separate issue. I mean, separate or not, but it's a separate issue pretty much. Because the students of Rabbi Akiva died because they weren't being respectful to each other. So in any event, because many of us think, well, I don't know if I need the Torah to tell me what moral clarity is. Oh, I'm a pretty moral person. I can know what clarity is. And unfortunately, that is not the case. And I'll give you several examples. In England, the British High Court of Justice ruled in the case of Alfie Evans, a little boy who suffered from a rapidly progressive terminal illness. In London's Alderhay Children's Hospital, further treatment was futile and asked the court, over his parents' objections, to order the removal of its ventilator. Okay. Child is not doing well, it's terminally ill. The parents want him to remain to be ventilated, and the hospital says, nah, what's the point? They finally got permission to transfer him to a pediatric hospital in Rome, where the doctors agreed to take over his treatment. And Pope Francis arranged for free medical transport, and the Italian government had granted Alfie citizenship to facilitate the transfer. And a hospital in Munich, but the court ruled that it was in Alfie's best interest to die. and doctors had told the court he might be able to muster just a handful of breaths and survive just a few minutes if the ventilator will completely stop. In fact, he kept fighting to live for 5 full days without life support. Police officers were posted outside his hospital holding the child hostage in order to ensure that his mom and dad try not to take him away while the death sentence was carried out. I mean, it's just beyond baffling that this, I mean, the article is a whole article about it. But another example, Richard Dawkins, a very famous scientist. He feels that it's immoral to carry on a pregnancy from a mother who knows that the fetus has Down syndrome. It's immoral, is what his opinion is. She will be faced with a real ethical dilemma if a child had. And Dawkins said, abort it, try again. It'd be moral to bring him into the world. He's the author, by the way, of The God Delusion. That is correct. But I can't hear.
You said he's also the author of a book
Called The God Delusion.
God Delusion.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in God, which is obvious. So here's a man named Frank Steffens. I'm a man with Down syndrome, and my life is worth living. And he writes a whole article. I'll just read a piece of it. Just to be no confusion, I'm not a research scientist. However, no one knows more about life about Down syndrome than I do, because I have Down syndrome. My life is worth living. And he uses a cute term. I completely understand that the people pushing this particular final solution are saying people like me should not exist. The view is deeply prejudiced by an outdated idea of life with Down syndrome. I have lectured at universities, acted in an award-winning film and an Emmy-winning TV show, and spoken to thousands of young people about the value of inclusion and making America great. I have been to the White House twice, and I did not have to jump the fence either time. So it's just, really and the truth of the matter is many family members of Down syndrome children say that their lives are enhanced by having a sibling with Down syndrome. So it's a fascinating thing. What people think is morality is not. There was a terrible story a few years ago in 2021 in the city of Meron, where there was a lot of people who went there for Lag BaOmer, and for whatever reason, there was the gate was closed. It should have been open, and several people died in the onslaught of people trying to get out. So Rabbi Nehemiah Coopersmith's son was watching the funeral, and it was of Donnie Morris. My 17-year-old son, who has Down syndrome, sat beside me and took one of my earphones to listen. Speak after speak, he didn't budge. He was getting late, and I told him, Yehuda, it's time to get ready for bed. And listen to the line he told his father. He looked at me straight in the eye and said with such seriousness, but this is about life. I need to learn about what I'm doing wrong and what changes I need to make. He didn't go to bed until the funeral ended a good hour later. It was a gut-wrenching funeral, yet Yehuda understood this wasn't just about death. We're tapping into the real meaning of life and what it's all about. He said it's a terrible darkness of this abyss of pain, but it's an engine to change and grow. And here's a Down syndrome child who can say that. Washington Post article talks about Peter Singer, a tenured professor of bioethics. Supposed to be ethics. And he's an advocate of infanticide. And he's in a endowed seat at the University Center for Human Values. Human babies are not born self-aware and capable of grasping that they exist over time. They're not persons. The life of a newborn is less valuable than the life of a pig, dog, or a chimpanzee. Maybe to you, but not for the Torah and not for us. And Singer has been influenced by Jeremy Bentham, the founder of modern utilitarianism. Bentham held that the foundation of morals and legislation should be, as Singer explains, to maximize pleasure or happiness and minimize pain or unhappiness. And again, that's not the Jewish view. In practical ethics, Singer disputes Dr. Leo Alexander, who was an expert whisperer at Nuremberg trials and later wrote that the crimes of the Nazis before the gas chambers started from small beginnings, the acceptance that there are such things as a life not worth being lived. That's pretty powerful stuff. That you got to the Nazis by making little baby steps toward that, a life not worth living. I was once in the hospital. We had a lady from the Jewish Learning Exchange that was there. She was comatose. And I had a meeting with the doctors there, and I didn't know, I was set up in the sense, I didn't know what the meeting was about. And they basically were thinking about, stopping care for her. And I said, you have to understand, by Jewish law, we don't determine the value of a life, whether the life can play tennis or not. That's not the determining factor. Person's still alive. In most cases, we will let the person live. So we live in an age where so many things are blurred and what is right and what is wrong. And the Torah is the anchor to tell us what's the right thing to do. And, each medical situation, some of them are very difficult situations. You have to ask a competent Jewish law expert to tell you should we pull the plug, not pull the plug. But under normal circumstances, we want a person to live. And because we don't like the Down syndrome child, or because we think, it's going to be difficult, so what? The goal isn't for pleasure. The goal is there's a human life that needs to be given respect and love and care. So having a Torah that we study gives us the anchor that allows us to know what the right thing to do is.
Where now in the Chumash does it show the value of the human life?
It's not right here now. It's
looking at Mishnah.
No, it's throughout the Torah. You and in the Talmud that discusses it. It's just that we in the Bamidbar talks about getting the Torah and in the desert, and that's important because it gives us the moral clarity. Roy, you had a question?
Comment, if I can make, when they were going through the voting and changing the whole idea of can you even remember the words, like if abortion should be
legal or not.
There were some news that they were talking about that there are doctors who, with the parents, they have the baby born, and if there is anything going on with the baby, and illnesses, genetic illnesses, they'll decide at that point if they want to keep the baby.
Right.
No.
But that's called murder. That's called murder. So that's the point here.
Well,
That yes,
so, at the end of life, there's a lot of times that, like, for example, some people have predetermination of whether it's the likely to want to give by something, that. So if they don't go on it, what I always dealt with was, if they don't want to be on life support, we allow them to expect that.
not necessarily. Not
So
necessarily.
you can't force your will onto another person.
Well, we can try to convince the family that this is the right thing to do, is to let them live. There was a woman that worked at Cedars that came to my classes. She now, thank God, is living in Israel, married, and she was a powerhouse. And she worked at Cedars in the emergency room in helping people process to get in. And she had a friend of hers whose father was in the hospital, and the doctors had told him he's not making it. We're going to pull the plug soon. And she remembered from the class. She said, Rabbi Czapnik said, you shouldn't pull the plug. It's not so easy. You have to ask a Jewish law authority. And they asked the question, and the rabbis ruled not to pull the plug. And the man got better and walked out of the hospital and survived another few weeks. One second, let me finish the story. And like a few weeks later, he did pass away, and the woman felt a little badly. Like, I told you, make a ruckus with the doctors. Was it worth it? Like, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't impose. She says, what are you talking about? We had our dad for another few weeks. That was worth everything to us. We were so happy about it.
I understand what you're saying, but a lot of times what happens is when we're in the process of dying, that the older person is 95, 96, they basically have memory deficit,
Okay, they're still a person.
Yeah, and they're progressing down the dying process. Sometimes again, and it's not pulling the plug, because if you don't initiate the plug and go, and if they have in the advanced directed to move. At least what we know is that if they would stay with itself.
So it's, again, there's no blanket statement. Each individual case needs to be dealt with a competent Jewish law authority who's an expert on Jewish medical ethics. And sometimes the answer may be, okay, you don't have to put them on life support. Sometimes the answer may be, no, you put them on life support. And their opinions have some weight, but not totally. There was a Iraqi war veteran who was in a American Humvee, and they hit a mine, and he became paralyzed, couldn't move, and he wanted to tell his fellow soldiers, "Kill me, I don't want to live this way," but he couldn't talk. So they let him live. And eventually he became an advocate against the war in Iraq, whatever it was. But he himself found meaning and purpose. You agree with the meaning and purpose. You don't agree, it's a separate issue. But he himself found meaning and purpose in it by saying, I am alive, and this is what I'm going to do now, even though it's not the life that I planned. So I'm just saying, sometimes we have sympathy for the situation, which is not relevant to the reality of what is Jewish law state. So again, competent Jewish law authority has to be asked before decisions can be made. All right. The Parsha also talks about census taking, and the idea there is God showing his love for us. What do people count? They don't count their bills. They usually count the money they have, right? What's valuable to them. And they counted them from ages 20 and older, except for the tribe of Levi, that was counted from age 30 days and older. And these were the men that could be in the Jewish army. But they weren't counted by number 1, 2, 3. Everybody gave a half shekel. And with that, everyone was counted by counting the coins. The Parsha also talks about the Nisim. The Nisim are the princes of each tribe. Each tribe had somebody that was on charge of them. And the Parsha also talks about how the Jewish people traveled. And if you look at the Parsha facts, you will see, and again, those of you not here, I'll show it to you. You will see you'll see that there was three camps. There was the camp for the Kohanim and the Mishkan. Then there was the Levi camp, and then there was the Israel camp. And the clouds of glory surrounded them. So look at the northern side. There's Naphtali, Asher, and Dan. That's where they and their families live. On the Mizrach side, the eastern side, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zebulun. On the southern side was Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. So Reuven, Shimon, and Gad. And then on the western side was Binyamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. Now wait a second. If the Levites are in the middle, how are there 13 tribes? Sounds like there should be only 12. How are there 12 tribes? It sounds there should be only 11. Because the Kohanim and the Levites were in the center. And the answer is, because Yosef was divided into two, and you remember what their names were? Ephraim and Manasseh. Very good, that's right. So there's always going to be 12 tribes. So again, there was three sections. And what was the central part of the camp, the Jewish camp? The Mishkan. The Mishkan was the tabernacle. Again, I'll show you a picture here. The tabernacle was and that shows the priority of the camp. You know, you have to, what's most important is in the middle. Those are the three camps. One was the camp of Shekhinah, where the divine presence was, and the Kohanim were. Two is the Levite camp, and three is where the rest of the Jewish people were. And depending on the level of impurity, which we'll find out about, that different people of impurity had to leave in different camps. For example, someone who spoke Lashon Hara, spoke ill, had to go, became ritually unclean, had to go out of all three camps. Got it? Okay. So the centrality of the Mishkan was important because the Mishkan taught us some important ideas. So I'm going to do a quick overview of some of the concepts the Mishkan taught us. The Aron, the ark with the tablets in it, that told us about the written Torah. The menorah, the light of the menorah, that represented the oral Torah. The shulchan, the table, that reminds us about, and that has the showbread, the 12 loaves of showbread, that reminds us about elevating the physical. The Mizbeach HaKtoras, the altar for incense, that we should create an environment of holiness. The Mizbeach HaKarbanos, the altar for sacrifices, that reminds us about self-sacrifice, not to just be focused about ourselves, but focus for others and for God. The Kiyar, the wash basin, reminds us of washing away our past and starting new. The yard reminds us to set up parameters. And this is the whole Mishkan reminds us of the synagogue. But actually, there's something even more important than the synagogue, and that's the Jewish home. The Jewish home, to create an atmosphere for that is most important.
The Arab Rav is outside.
The Arab Rav were the Egyptian people that wanted to join the Jewish people. You know what happens after the election when a guy puts a bumper sticker on for whoever won? It's a joke about the guy who says, I always vote for the winner. And he waits to see who wins, and then he puts the bumper sticker on. So the Arab of the Egyptians who saw that the Egyptians getting bammed up, so they said, we want to be with the Jewish people too. Well, so they weren't in the camp. So it mentions in the Torah on page 737 that these are the children of Moshe and Aaron, and it doesn't mention Moshe's children, it just says Aaron's children. And that's interesting, because if it's saying the children of Moshe, why doesn't it mention his kids? But it really does mention Moshe's children, because our sages tell us someone who teaches somebody else Torah whoever teaches the son of his friend some Torah, that son like becomes his son. So Moshe taught Aaron's children, so it became his children as well. There's a sweet story about a man who came to a rabbi who was running a yeshiva, and it was a kind of a lashon, if I remember correctly. No, it was the Naftali Berlin, the Netziv. And he says, Rabbi, I'm going to entrust my son in your yeshiva, but he's my only son, so please care for him very well. And the Netziv said, I have 400 only children in the yeshiva, because he looks at them as his own children. It was very nice. The Levim were counted from 30 days and over, and no, they didn't have to give. And they were like, the Levim and the Kohanim, that's a part of Levim, they're like the legion of God. So Moshe asks, how can I know how many there are? Because obviously the babies are not going to go bring coins. So Hashem said, you just go to each tent and I'll tell you how many are inside. And some of them are busy, the mother's nursing them. Moshe's not going to go into each tent and inspect it. You do yours and I'll do mine. And that's, by the way, a very powerful idea in Judaism, that we should always try to do our best and let God finish the idea. Now, by the way, before we go on, before we conclude, I want to say that each of the tribes had their own flag, and the flag represents an aspect about a spiritual aspect of that tribe. And if you notice in our beautiful shul here, the ark has for each of the tribes, and these are some of the symbols. And some of them are based upon the blessings that Yaakov gave, and each one represents something historical related to it. So it's mixed up. Well, Yehuda is a lion because the kings came from Yehuda. Levi has the breastplate because the Kohanim came from them, etc., etc., etc. So it's important that everybody should know we all have a role in Judaism. It might not be exactly the same. We all have some requirements that we have to do, but each person fulfills a different role, and it's important that we not be busy looking at somebody else's role, but make sure we're doing our role.
Most of us come from
No, we got mixed up a lot, so we don't know exactly which tribe we're from. Right. So the Kohanim, they're from tribe of Levi, and they're from descendants of Aaron. The Leviim are not from Aaron, but they are from the tribe of Levi. One of the very beautiful things was an agreement that Yisachar and Zebulun had, two tribes. And Yisachar and Zebulun had a beautiful deal. Yisachar said they were merchants. Zebulun were merchants. And Yisachar, they studied Torah. And they had a deal. And some people actually do this. They make this deal. You will study Torah, and I will pay half of my earnings to you, and I'll get the credit for half of your learning. So it's a very beautiful kind of arrangement. So it's understanding what the priorities. There was a man named Mendy Klein who is from Cleveland. He gave a tremendous amount of charity, and he said a beautiful thing one time. He came into his office. Do we have any big deals coming up? I say, why? He says, I need to fund an important charity project, a Jewish charity project, and I need to have the deal finished so I can give them the money. And what's beautiful about it is the charity wasn't a product of his success, it was the opposite. His success was a product of his charity. Whatever charity he wanted to give, he wanted the deal to finish so that it could work out. another thing in the parasha it deals with is the job of the Leviim had special jobs. One of the jobs they had was singing in the playing music and singing in the Mishkan and in the temple. And they also, when it came to the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle, what did they have to do? They had to take it apart when it was time to move, carry it, and set it back up again. And each one of the three families within the tribe of Levi had a different job, which we'll go into greater detail at another time, because there was the jobs of the roof, there was the jobs of the walls, there was the jobs of the vessels inside. So,
By the way, is the Jewish calendar already established at this point?
where?
During the period?
No, here, no, definitely not. The Jewish calendar wasn't established until much later because the ideal way of doing the calendar is for witnesses to come and declare they saw the new moon.
So how do they know Shabbat? How do they know, like, for example?
Shabbat is not tied to the calendar. Shabbat is tied to the days of the week. That they knew.
But it kept on changing.
The days don't change. The question is if the month changes, when the month begins. So that they had witnesses that saw the new moon and declared it, and the court would announce new moon, Rosh Chodesh, new moon, new month. You understand? But the days of the week, that stays the same. An interesting Jewish law question: what do you do with the guys on a deserted island without any cell phone reception? And you don't know when Shabbos is. You wake up and say, I don't know what day it is. So one of the opinions is that you count 7 days, and the seventh day is your Shabbat. Even though it might not be Shabbos, but at least you're keeping Shabbos the way you can. I just want to conclude something interesting that you may find interesting, I should say. I found it interesting. What are the greatest gifts that Hashem gave us? Our 5 senses, right? We're able to taste, smell, see, hear, touch. So I wanted to suggest that the different books of the Torah connect to one of the senses. Bereshit, Genesis, is a smell, fragrance. Why fragrance? Because we didn't get the Torah yet, but we have when you come into a house and there's a great smell of my wife's challah, you know, smell of my wife's challah. You didn't taste it yet, but you smell it. So, that smells good, right? So Bereshit is the fragrance of what was coming with the Torah being given. Shemos is actually sight, because God did many performed miracles for the Jewish people in Egypt by the sea and by the giving of the Torah. Vayikra is taste. It has the karbanos, it has the sacrifices there, as well as the laws of kashrus are in Vayikra, of keeping kosher. Vayikra is taste, because it has the sacrifices as well as the laws of kosher. Bamidbar is touch, because it has the senses. Nasa, next 2 weeks ago's portion, is about lifting up. And Devarim, words, is hearing, as Moshe spoke, and we heard. So the five Chumashim may correspond to the 5 senses that we have. Yes, I'll do it again. Bereshit is fragrance, smell, because it's preparing us for what's going to come. It's based on also a verse in Pirkei Avos, in the Shir Shirim. But either as it may, Shemos is sight, because we saw the miracles that took place. Vayikra is taste, laws of kashrus and sacrifices. Bamidbar is touch, the senses taking, and the Devarim could be hearing, because Devarim means words, and that's they heard the words. So that could be of interest to you that way as well. All right. Okay. We will stop here. Yes.
That's just. Like, Naphtali, Asher, Dan are on the north side, or whatever.
Yeah, all of the significant where they were, each had their own role. Yeah.
Do we know where it is?
I don't know, but any questions, thoughts, comments? What?
5% for 5 expenses related.
Yeah. That's sort of. Any thoughts, ideas?
I have a question.
Yes.
In the Arab Rob, is that where the people who were tainted had to go and live?
Well, that they had to live outside the camp. The Erev were the Egyptians that joined later. That's what they
Yeah,
were.
but it's also the area where.
Yeah, it was the same outside the camp. Hi, Dan. Feel good?
Thank you, Rabbi, for
You're
today.
welcome. Take care, Yehuda.
Hi, Rabbi. How are you?
Happy Mother's Day, Yehuda.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. All the best, everybody. Bye-bye.